G'day, I'm Mark from Self Sufficient Me, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build a high raised garden bed that's low cost, easy to build and fast to do. Let's get into it. I've done several videos in the past and written articles about why I love these high-sided raised beds for growing my veg. So I'll list some of that content below if you want to check it out. Also, I want to stress that, as you can see, this isn't a perfect build. It's made mostly with old timber that I've salvaged from our rotten back deck, and I've focused on building a strong, functional bed as cheaply and fast as possible. Not on showing off how neat and pretty my carpentry skills are, because they are never neat and pretty. And I don't say it as a cop-out either. I say it to motivate people. Too many don't attempt these DIY projects because they see those fancy builds on gardening TV shows and think, that's way too complicated for me. Or they worry about how good it looks rather than how functional it is. Remember, it's just a veggie garden. Anyway, to build a garden bed like this, that's 2.5 meters long by 1 meter wide and 80 centimeters high, I used 3 good quality fencing posts, 100 by 75 mil by 2.4 meters long, cut in half to make 6 posts of 1.2 meters. I purchased these posts new at just under 16 bucks each. All up I used 28 meters, you wouldn't think so, would you? But 28 meters of hardwood plank, which is 20 centimeters wide and 3.5 centimeters thick, to make the sides 4 planks high at 80 centimeters all up. These planks were from the old railing around our deck. You can buy them new, but of course if you could salvage some or buy them second hand, it can be very cost effective. You could even use old decking or pallet wood for this type of build, as long as there's not any chemicals or lead paint or anything like that on them. And to fix all these planks to the posts, I used about 120 65mm galvanised timber roofing screws. The main tools I needed to build this bed were a drill, circular saw, reciprocating saw, tape measure, level and post hole digger. The first thing I did was work out where I wanted the bed. And because I am replacing our old garden beds installed back in 2006, I already had the rectangular shape embedded in the ground. Otherwise I would have made a rectangle using a string line to ensure it was nice and square from the start. Regardless, I still used the length of plank to ensure that the posts were aligned. Then I began placing the fencing posts in each corner. Of course, I needed to cut them in half first, and then I used a post hole digger to dig down about 35 centimeters, give or take, to ensure the posts would be stable enough in ground, but also high enough to accommodate the 4 planks. You probably can't see it in camera, but the ground slopes down several inches to my left, so I needed to make sure I had enough post out of the ground on this side to enable me to level off the planks later. Once I dug the hole, I made sure the post was plumb straight and then backfilled, compacting the dirt down so the post was seated in nice and firm. I kept measuring the post to ensure my distancing was correct, and although I probably could have gotten away with just 4 corner posts, I decided to place 2 in the centre of the bed to prevent any blowout once the beds were filled. A common problem with long raised garden beds is blowout in the centre. It's just physics, isn't it? Where you've got a lot of mass or soil in a bed, it's going to push out at the weakest point. So if you've got anything pretty much over 1.5 meters long, I would consider putting a centre post in the middle. Besides starting with a square base, the next most important thing is to have a level bed, and I did this by levelling the plank on the high ground first before fixing it to the posts. Levelling the plank is easy. Just use a level to get the true horizontal, hold it in place and then screw it in. Position another plank on the other side and get a true level across, and then fix the second plank into place. In my case, due to the slope, I needed to lift the second plank several inches. Once you've got those 2 planks in place, leveled off and square, it's almost impossible to stuff it up. It's just a matter then of stacking the planks on top of each other. I should mention that you will need to cut the planks to size. I had irregular sized planks due to the demolition process of our old deck, so I stacked one side first and then trimmed off the excess later on before boarding up the final end. The bottom end boards are simply lined up with the side planks and then stacked as before. I did use an extra screw in some boards just to account for warped wood, but essentially I positioned 3 screws in each end offset to minimize splitting and maximize hold. And of course, remember to always drill into hardwood first before you go screwing the screws in. The last thing I did was trim off the excess from the posts, and I could give the outside a paint to help it last longer, but we'll see. I've got about 5 more beds to do, so I'm sure a good coat of paint on the outside and the top of these posts will help it a lot, and I'm sure I'll do it. Now, like I said in the beginning of this build, it's far from perfect, and you don't have to look closely to see that I'm out a few mils here and there. I don't care. And your measurements can be slightly out here and there, or the wood not perfect. It doesn't matter as long as it's strong and functional. I'm getting quite attached to this board here. Do I look like a real builder? Real carpenter? Just a few last tips and points. I built this bed over a few weeks, just doing about 20 or 30 minutes work here and there when I could find the time. Most people with limited handyman or building experience could build this bed in a few hours. Posts on the inside, I'm well aware that physics mean a stronger bed is one with posts on the outside, because this negates the pressure on the boards when the bed is full. But I hate trimming weeds and grasses from around posts that stick out. Invariably, you go through too much trimmer cord. So for me, they go on the inside, allowing for a nice clean edge. And I tell you what, with the amount of 65mm roofing screws I've screwed into this thing, it's going nowhere. How long and wide should you make it? You can make it as long or short as you like. However, width is especially important. If you make the beds too wide, you might not be able to comfortably reach the center of the bed. And that's why I made them only 1 meter wide. This is a good width for most people wanting to garden in a raised bed with high sides like this one. As far as height goes, 70 to 100 centimeters is a good height range. If you're really short or maybe in a wheelchair, I'd suggest go down to about 70. But be careful not to go too low, because if you do, it defeats the purpose. It makes gardening harder. These high side raised beds are excellent for people who are disabled or have injuries, because it makes gardening so much easier. What I reckon you should do, if you've got any doubts, is build up a mock first and just sit them into place, and then have a feel of what it's like before you go sticking the thing together to make sure it's the right height. Also, some of you might be wondering, Mark, I've been watching you for a while and you've plugged those steel raised garden beds no end. So why build your own now? That's a good question, and I'm glad you asked. Yes, I love these Birdie's raised garden beds. They are still my fave, and in all honesty, these types of galvanised raised beds will always outlast this build here, no matter how much of a great job I think I did on it. Now, if you like those types of beds, I've got a deal with Kevin from Epic Gardening. He actually sells them in the States. So have a look down the description below and you'll be able to see anyone that uses that code that I've put there on Kevin's site where he sells them will get a 5% discount. And I've had that deal going with him for quite a while now, so get into it. I also get a small commission out of those sales as well, just for full disclosure. But yeah, one of those beds there, they're quite large. That particular type would be around $370, whereas this bed here I've made for $70. Granted, I salvaged a lot of that wood, but there's no saying that you can't salvage that wood either, like I said earlier. At the end of the day, it's not about what beds I prefer or what lasts longer or what even I recommend. It's about having all that spare wood left over and me being able to recycle it and upcycle it into something else. How do you fill one of these beds? Well, that's another great question. There's a lot of talk about filling these beds and how expensive it can be because they're so large. And yes, it can be expensive, and I've already started filling it for those of you with a keen eye. And I'll be showing you how you can do this for a very low limited cost in the next video. So make sure you stay tuned, subscribe, hit the bell or whatever, so that you don't miss this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had fun putting it all together. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.